Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Tuesday was NFL cut-down day when rosters went from 90 to 53. You know that. There were some surprises. I mean, maybe not surprising that Kendre Miller went to IR. Jordan Mims made the team at running back. Obviously, I think Jonathan Abram was maybe the big surprise. Mason Tipton making the 53-man roster. But we always say that it's the first 53, not the final 53. Because, as I like to say, in one fell swoop, there's 1,000 NFL players that become free agents. And somebody among those players that got cut is bound to be a better player, a better option than somebody on your 53. John Stinchcomb was here on Monday, if you missed that. Former Saint, Pro Bowl offensive tackle, great right tackle. And we were talking primarily about Trevor Penning, and I said, hey, look, could there be somebody who gets cut from another team that could be a better option than Penning? And he said no, because nobody's third or fourth best tackle is going to be better than the guy that right now is slotted in as your best guy. It's not to say someone couldn't make your team, but it's not going to be a starter. That makes sense. But when you get down to roster spot 51, 52, 53, is there somebody who just missed another team's 53 that's better than your 53 or at a certain spot? And that's kind of where you look at that margin. Case in point, the Saints claimed off of waivers Vikings running back Kene Nwangwu. And if you're not familiar, Kene Nwangwu was a second-team All-Pro kickoff returner as a rookie. I'll give you a little of the background first, and then we'll kind of get into who he is, why it might make sense for New Orleans. So Nwangwu went to Iowa State, running back, kick, punt returner in college. Was a really good player, led the Big 12 in return yards. Went into the 2021 draft after the COVID year, spent 5 years at Iowa State, went into the 2021 draft. Was a fourth-round pick of the Vikings. And, immediately burst onto the scene. Now, he started the season on IR as a rookie, but when he was healthy, he ends up returning 2 kickoffs for touchdowns as a rookie. Twice was the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. He returns another kickoff for a touchdown in 2022, so he's got 3 career kickoff returns for touchdowns. And then last year goes back to IR, injury-prone season, and now the Vikings are where they are when they're going into year 4, and Nwangwu is cut. Now, I'm trying to get a little more insight from people in Minnesota. Got a good friend, Phil Mackey, who covers the Vikings there, Score North up in Minneapolis, kind of give me some insight on what would happen there with Nwangwu, why they didn't retain him. Not a very productive runner, right? Just 27 career rushing attempts, but they've obviously been pretty deep at running back at Minnesota. With Dalvin Cook being there. They've had good lead backs. So you're talking about a guy that was a special teams guy primarily and a backup at running back. So from the Saints' perspective, I think you're looking at this as, okay, you've got Alvin Kamara as your 1. You've got Jamal Williams as your 2. Kendre Miller was going to be the 3. He's on IR, so you keep Jordan Mims. Well, is Mims a guy that, as you look at as a returner, is Nwangwu and Mims, if they're equal, roughly, as far as running backs, your number 3 running back, who you're not going to rely on tremendously. But what they can give you is value in the return game. Well, who's better? And if you look at it and say, okay, well, Nwangwu's a better option, he's healthy, than Jordan Mims in the return game, then it might make sense that he's a better option as that 53 guy on your roster, 53rd guy on the roster. And I'll remind you, last year for New Orleans, your returners were Rashid Shaheed and Lynn Bowden. Well, Lynn Bowden ain't on your team anymore. So you got Shaheed and, well, who's the option? Looking at this could be a better option than what you currently have. And I'll also say it becomes even more relevant this year because of the kickoff rule. A year ago, y'all know the stat by now if you've watched any of preseason. Again, they changed the kickoffs. A year ago, roughly 80% of kickoffs resulted in touchbacks. Well, there just wasn't a lot of value in having a lot tied up in a kick returner because you didn't return kicks. 80% of them were touchbacks. Well, now with the new rule in preseason, now granted, it was just preseason, but 80% of the kickoffs in preseason were returned. They're trying to encourage that play back into the game. So, yeah, if all of a sudden, a year ago, Shaheed returned 18 kickoffs, in 17 games returned 18 kickoffs. I think Shaheed actually played in 15 games, if I remember correctly. But if you return 18 kickoffs on the season, and now all of a sudden you're talking about maybe tripling that number, then yeah, of course it's worth it to have a more dynamic player as a kick returner back there to give him more opportunities. And maybe Nwangwu was that. But the question is obviously begged, why would Minnesota have moved on from Kene Nwangwu if there's that much value there? Now, they know him. He's been injured in his career. And so maybe that's part of it. Maybe they just, I don't know Minnesota's roster top to bottom. I'm not telling you, I'm not going to pretend to know what's going on with Minnesota and why that would make sense. But the other factor that gives me a little confidence in this, where was the Saints offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak before he was in San Francisco? Well, he was in Minnesota and with Denver. He was in Minnesota when Nwangwu was a rookie for those first 2 years. Clint Kubiak had him there as a running back and obviously saw him as a returner. So this is one of those instances where your offensive coordinator is validating this player. I mean, it's not that dissimilar from Sean Payton in Denver bringing all these former Saints to Denver because he had them. He drafted them. He signed them as free agents. He played them. He scouted them. He knows them. So Clint Kubiak clearly knows the player. And if the coach is bringing in one of his former players, it's validating, saying, I had that guy in my locker room. I had that guy in my offensive meetings. I know what he can be, and we can use him. So I like it. I'm not sitting there doing backflips. I'm not telling you it's going to change the trajectory of the Saints organization. And we'll wait and see. At this point, I don't know yet what the corresponding move is to create the roster spot. And whenever that happens, we'll let you know. And maybe it's Jordan Mims. I don't know. But you're talking about, you're checking a lot of boxes. You have a guy that has been an elite kick returner. He's still young. He's had some injury issues. But if he's healthy, in a year where kick returns are being integrated more into the offense, and your new offensive coordinator had him in Minnesota and has vouched for him to bring him back, that checks a lot of boxes. And I like it a lot. So Kene Nwangwu, the Saints claim off of waivers. He was waived by Minnesota, so the Saints claim him off of waivers. Now he'll be a member of the New Orleans Saints, and we'll see here a little more than a week away from the opener if, in fact, Nwangwu sticks and is on the field when the Saints play Carolina in the Dome a week from Sunday. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.